it water with the sheep in the box?
Hello everyone, it's Sheep here, or Matt, you can call me Matt, it's my name. So this is just an unscripted video that I just wanted to discuss something that I've been noticing for quite a while, but I don't really know if it's worth making a whole video essay about it. I might do, but I just wanted to get a few points across, really. So, as you can see from the title, the point of this video is to make the very simple assertion that, contrary to what many in the West might like to think, the continent of Africa is not a monolith. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, as I'm sure you're aware, if you look at almost any media concerning Africa or in which Africa is briefly mentioned, if you were to believe Hollywood, there are two kinds of people in Africa, maybe three at a push: warlords, tribesmen, and peasants. Basically, people living in slums. Now, obviously, this is woefully reductive, and one could make a very good argument that it's incredibly offensive, because obviously, Africa is an incredibly diverse and varied place. It is a continent, after all. According to Google, the population of Africa is 1.216 billion people. There is a massive variation within that. Just for reference, the population of Europe is 741.4 million. And I suppose it's just very frustrating when in media often the entire continent of Africa is treated like a monolith, like a monoculture. And honestly, the idea that Egypt is the exact same as Somalia, or the Democratic Republic of Congo is exactly the same as South Africa, or Nigeria is the same as Mauritania. Africa is the second largest continent by both landmass and population. And I suppose there's a certain kind of post-colonial element to this whole idea, I suppose, because obviously in the West, for the longest time, the impression of Africa was as a place to exploit, to go in, take all their shit, murder all their people, enslave some of them, and just pillage the continent. So for hundreds of years, really, we in the West have seen Africa as a monolith, because our ancestors just didn't care. And obviously there's a lot of issues in Africa, mostly as a result of the colonialism. There's a lot of unrest and so on and so forth. But to pretend that every place in Africa is exactly the same or really comparable to one another is just ridiculous. You know, I mean, in my hometown, there's a lot of, there's got a really large immigrant population, and I do actually have a few African friends, and in fact, my ex-girlfriend was from South Africa. So just within my friend group, I'm well aware of the differences between South African and Ghanaian culture, because obviously I have extensive experience with my ex-girlfriend, and also with one of my friends who's from Ghana. So this is a sort of aimless video, really, but I've been seeing it in movies for a while, and especially since dating an African person, I noticed it's a very, very Western thing that we need to stop doing, basically. The example I always give, well, there's two examples, really, but the main example I always give is someone I used to know, one of my best friend's ex-girlfriend, upon first meeting my ex, genuinely said, "Oh, you're from Africa. My friend volunteered in Somalia building mud huts. Do you live in a mud hut? Do you live in a hut made of shit?" As I believe the terminology she used. And even well-meaning people in the West often have this misconception. When I first introduced my ex-girlfriend to a family member, shall I say, an older family member, the first thing she said was, "Oh, your English is quite good." My ex was from South Africa and English was her first language. So I think this is just something we need to bear in mind. I did see this tweet recently, which is what inspired this video. I suppose the main takeaway from this is just when you see in a movie, probably a good example is in the original Independence Day movie. There's this shot where it shows all around the world how people are reacting to the situation, and there's this one shot of some tribesmen in Africa with spears. And it's just sort of, you do realize that Africa isn't like in the Stone Age, right? Like, there's this idea that Africa isn't that it's sort of stuck in the ancient past, and I think we need to get away from that. Basically, Africa, there are 54 countries in Africa. A lot of them have issues, just like countries in the West. And of course, we could go into detail of each country and the causes for each of the issues, usually, as I said, as a legacy of colonialism. But the main point I want to make here is that when we see in culture, in movies or just on Twitter, someone generalizing, we need to be aware that saying something like, oh, you know what it's like in Africa, or just when Africa is being represented as a monoculture, we need to point out that that is as ridiculous as saying, oh, in Asia or oh, in Europe. We seem perfectly willing and capable of telling the difference between British culture and Italian culture and even French culture and German culture, and they're right next to each other. Now imagine that. Those are two very small countries that are right next to each other. Now imagine countries like Morocco and Zimbabwe, just as examples. Depending on where you are in France and where you're going to in Germany, you can cross the border and get to your destination within minutes, really. If you wanted to go from Morocco to Zimbabwe, that's a journey of almost 7,000 miles and would take you 150 hours. And yet this culture is apparently a monolith. You see Americans get really pissed off a lot of the time if you dare consider that maybe Florida has a similar culture to New York, or especially if you imply that Canadians and Americans have a similar culture. And yet they're all too willing to say that the Central African Republic and Mali are probably the same. You know, they're all in Africa, right? So it's just something I want us to be more conscious of. It's just annoying, really, when you see it in movies or when you see people on Twitter saying stupid shit. And it's not malicious most of the time. It's just ignorance. And I think we just need to be aware of that and do our best to try and stop it, basically. That's all I had to say. I don't know how long this video is going to be. I think I repeated myself and rambled for ages, so that'll be interesting to edit. I've been talking for 15 minutes. I imagine that the video will be like 5 minutes or something. But yeah, that's the point I wanted to make. Just bear in mind that Africa is an incredibly varied place with a rich diversity of cultures and people, and yes, it does have some issues, but those issues are not by any stretch universal. And the first step in really tackling these issues is to acknowledge that each individual nation within Africa is unique and has its own unique issues and solutions to those issues. And I suppose, as well as that, it's incredibly important to remember that though they might be dehumanized in Western media a lot of the time, or othered in some way, African people are people. Like, they're human beings just like you and I, they just have a different culture. And I just find it incredibly frustrating when such a wide variety of cultures is boiled down to what basically amounts to warlords, corrupt dictators, and tribesmen, in the case of a few movies that I could name. Okay, that's all I had to say. I'm just repeating myself now. This is unscripted, so I don't know if it'll be any good, but it's just something I wanted to get off my chest. I didn't really want to make a full video essay about it because I didn't think there was much point, really. But anyway, yeah, see you soon. Bye.